at 4, the conflict in Iran is posing a new risk to the U.S. economy. The impact could be wide-ranging, and we're talking gas prices, Wall Street, and even the products that you use every day. And experts say that you could be feeling the effects on your wallet very soon. And joining us now is Bankrate Senior Economic Analyst Mark Hamrick to help us prepare for what's next. Mark, always good to see you. Thank you so much, sir. Let's start with this. What's the reality and the impact to families here in the DMV that we might actually notice?
We're already seeing higher prices at the pump, Annie, and I think that will continue for the foreseeable future. Right now, the difference is about a nickel a gallon, and we're getting to the point very soon where I think we'll probably be essentially flat for gasoline prices year over year. For the math, and people don't need to follow along per se with this, but please bear with us, that is that for every $10 increase in a cost of the barrel of crude oil, there can be about a quarter a gallon increase in the cost of gasoline. And, just last week in the State of the Union, President Trump was talking about how prices for some things were down. And as he cherry picked some of those numbers, gasoline was one of them. So for the near term, I would look for that to sort of go from what had previously been a positive for the pocketbook to neutral or a negative. And as we know from energy prices and gasoline in particular, once you start to see that price move up, it begins to affect so many different things because so much of the economy is reliant on transportation. Think about how that affects farming. Think about how that affects something like Amazon, driving a truck to our houses to deliver things. And so affordability is the number one challenge of the day, and this is going to be a negative in that regard. What we don't know is the duration of this war or conflict and whether these prices remain elevated or whether this is a short-term event and the prices could go back down. That's something we'll continue to watch.
For sure. And Mark, you mentioned some of the ripple effects to the economy when something like this happens. Walk us through how something happening overseas turns into higher prices or market swings here at home. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Sure. So crude oil is priced in the global marketplace because we live in a globalized economy. We learned that during the pandemic when supply chains got messed up all over the world and we ended up either not being able to find things or having to pay more for them. And so, those prices are essentially kind of a global tote board, and the price of crude oil goes up because there's going to be less supply of crude oil on the global market. So supply and demand, less availability, higher price. That's the way it works. We are not worried about a shortage of gasoline or crude oil in the United States, but it has to be priced in the global marketplace. And so once gasoline starts going higher, then there's that ripple effect that we talked about where it affects airline fares because jet fuel comes from that primary product as well, crude oil. And then we talked about transportation. We talked about how, the people who are driving the deliveries, whether it's to a business or to our homes, have to pay more for that. And so whether you're in the gig economy and having to pay for the cost of gasoline, or if we just have to get from point A to point B for whatever it is we're doing, whether it's working, shopping, taking the kids to school, that affects our pocketbooks. And so that's where this conflict that seems very far away has an immediate impact on our everyday finances.
Right. And Mark, for people feeling uneasy tonight following this news, what is one smart financial move to consider? What's your one key advice to anyone so that we don't overreact?
Well, first of all, what I would say is we control the things that we can control. And I'd go back to something that's one of our mantras at Bankrate, and that is that we really do need to prioritize emergency savings because as we've learned over the last, let's say, 4 years, prices can be volatile. And if we just confine volatility to the economic sphere, whether it's tariffs, whether it's this event, we know that prices can move up over the long term, and that's definitely been the case. And this is going to be another trigger for that, whether it's prolonged or sustained. So prioritize your emergency savings, and that will prepare you well for whatever life brings at us, whether it's an interruption in income, whether it's slightly higher prices for things. And if you have extra money in the bank, by the way, during this federal income tax filing season, when many people are going to get better or more substantial income tax refunds, putting some of that money away in the bank, not spending it if you don't have to, having it for a rainy day and emergency, that's something that's going to help you sail on through.
Great advice. Mark, always great to talk to you. Mark Hamrick, Bankrate Senior Economic Analyst. Thanks so much for shedding some light on this topic.
Thank you.
Of course.